Hello, and welcome to EUROSTUDENT Talks. I'm very happy that you have joined us today. In this episode, as we advertised, we will look ahead to 2050 and discuss how distance higher education can become more inclusive and whose perspectives are helping to shape that vision. I am very glad to have here Irina Haury, who is a research associate at the Chair of Adult and Continuing Education at the Institute of Educational Science and Media Research at the Fernuniversität in Hagen, which is, as I read, Germany's only distance learning state university. After working as an occupational therapist for several years, Irina began her research career in 2022 at the Federal Institute of Occupational Safety and Health in Dortmund, while studying the master's degree Health and Diversity at Work. Her research focused on accessibility in the workplace for people with disabilities. Since 2024, Irina is employed at the Fernuniversität in Hagen, where she is working on her PhD project that explores inclusion in distance higher education in 2050 and the student perspective. She is supervised by Professor Eva Sendon from the Fernuniversität in Hagen and Professor Mpine Makoa from the University of South Africa. And Irina's further research interests include students' perspectives on inclusion, equal opportunities, and participation. So, greetings to you, Irina. We are very happy that you agreed to join us. And
Yeah,
before I hand over to you, I just wanted to kindly remind our listeners that you're very welcome to join in the discussion. During the presentation, you can put your questions and comments to the chat. Then we can check it. And after the presentation, we will have the following Q&A session. So then you're absolutely welcome to raise your hand, notify us that you would like to ask or comment something. And I really encourage you to step in the discussion. But I think it's all from my side at the moment as an introduction, and I can hand over to you, Irina. So please go ahead.
thank you, Marlene, for the nice introduction, and welcome also from my side to everyone. And thank you for attending today to listen to my research project. And I will now start my screen sharing. So please inform me if you are not able to see the presentation. I will open the window now.
Yes, it works, and the presentation mode.
Yes, should be switched on now.
Yes, it works as well.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, as you can see there on the first slide, there's the Fern University in Hagen where I'm working and doing my research project at the Chair of Adult and Continuing Education. And my PhD project is with the title Inclusive Distance Higher Education and the Perspective of Students. And today I will focus on a part of this research project, what has an international focus. So this is why it's today the Global South and Global North perspective. And the agenda for today looks like this. So I will give you to kind of locate the whole thing I'm talking about today according to the policy analysis to the whole project. So I will give you a short overview. And I will also give you some background information on understandings, like the understanding on inclusion my project is based on for the start. And then I will focus on the policy analysis. And within this part of the project, I will focus on research I did in South Africa. So today there will be more of the global South perspective in focus. And then I will give a brief outlook on the what will be done in the future and the student interventions. And then there's room for question and answer. So I will now start with the background. So the whole project here very, very shortly is in keywords, focusing on inclusion. So this is the main thing, inclusion in distance higher education. So I'm focusing on two distance universities in my project. One in the global south and one in the global north, but I will come soon to that. Um, the aim of the project is to get to the student perspectives, and the international perspective is grounded in global south and north from the concept. As inclusion is a very highly discussed topic, I will try now to um, make it a little bit round with this try to a definition. So the start is that education is a human right, what is internationally agreed, so grounded in the um, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And the international agreed principle, what my project is based on, is the education for all approach. So that was consented in 1990. So the education for all means that inclusion is the way to get to education to everyone. So focusing on, for example, historically marginalized groups, women and girls who missed out on education, then students with disabilities. So education for all means we focus on disadvantaged groups, how to include them in education. And this is also for higher education agreed on as a target goal in the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, um, focusing also on lifelong education, lifelong learning for all, and making education inclusive and equitable. So what needs to be elaborated for this is that how distance education is playing a role for inclusion. And to get to distance education, um, what could be said, or what sometimes is known, that distance education is super flexible, so everyone can access, there are no mobility constraints, and it has from its founding idea a liberal and altruistic idea to make education more accessible to people. And this is a chance of this way of studying. So there's enhanced access to education. You can study from everywhere in the world. Maybe also if you're from a low socio-economic status group, you have less mobility costs, and you can also study when you're older and already working, or you have kids, and you need to stay at home at some days, so you could not be able to get to the university. So there are many chances distance education is providing, but research shows that at the same time there are still challenges. So if we look at access, so accessibility is a problem. So we have a lot of technology that is very advanced, but for example, if the technology, a person with a certain disability, for example, using a screen reader, is not compatible with the technology used in a virtual class, it can exclude. So there are still reported challenges for distance education. And if we look at the South, and there are some regions where there is digital divide or no infrastructure for ICT, then there can be also challenges for access, even if there's provided distance higher education. So if we look at a whole conclusion for that, it is like, as distance education aims to reach all these requirements of education for all and has the potential to provide inclusive education, but at the same time there are still challenges. It represents an area of research that promises to contribute to relevant findings. So these are the two basic backgrounds I wanted to give you before we head to already a little bit into the declaration and covenants. So the project is, as I said already, based on the right to education and the principle of education for all. And there are multiple of agreed covenants, like for special needs education, for students with disabilities. So like from the UN, the Convention for the Rights of People with Disabilities. So there are many rights acts in the background who give a frame for everything. And then for the time horizon of 2030, the Sustainability Development Goals were agreed on in 2050. And my project is aiming already a little bit further because there are already future orientated initiatives from the UNESCO and framed the time horizon of 2050. So this is frame as well for my project. And overall, there is the aim of the target goal from the SDGs, so inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning for all. This is for now the background. And here again, the aim of the project, the student perspectives are focused on in my project with the time horizon of 2050 and how students will see inclusive education in 2050 in this year. So what my project uses as steps, so there are three big steps, was an already conducted literature review, what shaped also a gap in literature and research on the topic, and then the part I'm now on working on is the policy analysis. First of all, document analysis, and then together with a focus group at the certain universities, giving a base for the future workshops at the University of South Africa and the Fern University. So how to approach this field, because it's very big, two distance universities. I chose these two case studies as the project aims for an international perspective. And for the Global South, I chose the University of South Africa. And for the Global North, I chose the Fernuniversität in Hagen. And now to the question, what are the benefits of this and why I chose those two? It is hard to get a wholesome international perspective. So I had to choose two universities for a maximum possible perspective that is international. And that's why I chose the Global South and Global North. And both universities share basic characteristics. So within their country, they are the only state-funded distance university. Of course, there are private ones, but this is a very important characteristic. And they share concepts as the open and distance e-learning or blended learning model. So blended learning would mean you have on-site seminars, but also virtual classes. And both universities have a unique characteristic in case of their geographical location and possible cultural imprints. What also needs is a target for the study to see the region. And then the UNISA and the Fern University have a memorandum of understanding signed, so that can facilitate the processes at the universities, for example, the access to the students. And what was lately done in South Africa in October was that a letter of intent was signed for more collaboration projects. So both universities had already collaborations, and this is also a focus both universities are working on. So the research question for the policy analysis is what understanding of inclusion do exist at both universities to frame how the university looks like and what also the context of the university is, if there are any specific things that need to be paid attention to. So this means also that the perspectives of the institution stakeholders in practice need to be investigated. And this can lead to a more holistic understanding how inclusion is understood. So I could also have just done the document analysis, but the approach is to look at it, try to look at it more holistic and to get also the perspectives of people working at the institution in the context of policies. So what policies are they using? What do they think about the policies? Where are challenges reported and so on? And this should then later give the possibility to get insights on the student groups that are focused on. So what kind of marginalized groups, for example, are focused on at the university. So here's the time frame very broadly. And now I'm focusing in what I will be telling you next on the focus group I did at the University of South Africa in October last year. So I visited there for a short research stay. It was about 1 week. And that's also the time when I was holding the focus group there. So the argument for this now is in order to understand how students perceive inclusion and how they envisage an inclusive distance higher education in the future, it is important to establish how inclusion is understood within the institution's policies and among its staff, and also to find out which groups are underrepresented. So to start, policies build the base, as I already mentioned them at the beginning. And for the case of UNISA, I started with the mission that is provided from the university's website and from the strategic plan. And the mission of UNISA is that the university wants to serve society by providing open and interactive distance learning to everyone, playing a leading role in representing the African perspectives in doing so. And the UNISA wants to give academic excellence through technology-oriented education that is dynamic and also through interdisciplinary communication. And the UNISA follows a future orientation and wants to rethink the Africa's intellectual future by providing education. So this sounds all very well. And I now want to tell you a story from the research stay and specifically from the focus group. So to dive directly into a story, it was said that policies are all at very high level and they sound very nice. So, but the thing is, when it comes to implementation, it can become a problem. So the story I'm now telling you is an example of a student who approached a professor and said to the professor, hey, they keep on giving me zeros. So I'm getting zeros for my tests, but I'm not stupid. So the professor decided to call her in and the lecturer. And the lecturer was sitting on the one side, the student on the other side, and it was a kind of a mediation situation. And the student was just insisting, hey, they are keeping me zeros. I'm not stupid. So the professor was thinking what to do now, this kind of mediation. And the professor was saying, wait, to the student, can you please explain what is happening? And then something suddenly happened and there was a totally different disability that came up. So the student was saying, these people, they give me a paper and they are asking me really stupid questions. So there you go, differentiated learning. So in reality, this student, the girl, had autism spectrum disorder, and she's actually a genius. So she chose not to respond to the questions because she just felt the questions are telling me I'm stupid. And yeah, the student was insisting and asking the lecturer in this situation, why are you asking me these questions? And the lecturer is just saying to the professor, You see what is happening, what she does?
Seems that we lost Irina for a moment, but I hope that she will be back very soon. We can wait a couple of minutes. I hope she will be back, and it was a kind of connection issue or battery issue, hopefully. Sorry for the inconvenience, but I hope we will sort it out and our speaker will be back in any minute. Yeah, like Christina asked in the chat, do we have people here from the distance higher education institutions? Someone who has this experience themselves? Silence. So we can assume that probably not. But maybe our audience can also share if you have experience in this topic somehow in more indirect way, and if your university, in case you are from a university, has ever thought about this distance education side and inclusivity. Or how familiar the topic is in general. I really hope we can get Irina back here soon. At the moment, yes, Annika, raise hand, please.
Hi, to fill the silence, I can just share what we have experienced. We had a mostly online master's program at our university, but the problem, at least in our country, is that people have actually to show up here to be to sort of what's the word, to sign in to university. So that is one of the biggest issues we actually face. We would like to offer online, but it of course hinders participation if people have to apply for a visa and go through all these processes to sign up at the university and then do an online course. So yeah, that's a bit problematic, unfortunately.
Yeah, its own challenges. Uh, Irina emailed me, said that it's a horrific update that her computer is having, but she's trying to be back. So if we can wait a couple of more minutes, I hope we can continue. But I already saw in the chat that there is someone who is a student at UNISA, so maybe you can share a bit of your experience if you would like to, and if it's okay for you. But if not, I really hope that you can stay with us, and Irina will be soon here.
Hi,
Because
Marlene.
yes, hello.
Hi.
Yes, you are muted at the moment. We can't hear you, but
Hi, Marlene. Can you hear me?
yes,
Hello, everyone.
now we can. Now we can. Yes.
Okay. So my experience with distance education, I think it feels like home because most of my studies I have done, including my master's and now PhD level. So And I'm also doing a study on obviously UNISA being the context. So obviously focusing on individuals with impairments, more so visual impairment. So it I think there's a technical bind in the sense that it is sometimes difficult for individuals with impairments like visual and audio impairments in the sense that if lectures are like delivered online, it becomes very difficult. And also, the online comes with the struggle that you can never really tell who is visually impaired or who has a hearing impairment. So that makes it very difficult in the sense, especially when you choose to study through this modality. But like all other universities, UNISA does try to offer support in terms of assistive devices, but there's still the huge issue of the digital divide where most of the students cannot afford or maybe cannot get hold of these assistive devices. And also coming to that, the assistive devices are usually imported, some of them. So sometimes when there are problems or issues with them, it is very difficult to repair, and there are issues after the other. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Yes, very nice that you shared, and actually it reflects very well what Irina said before, that on one hand the distance higher education seems easily accessible, but on the other hand there comes in topics like digital gap and how people can access these digital devices, and how is it really possible and how. So these challenges still remain if we think about distance higher education and inclusivity. Any other thoughts? Because I really hope that we can have Irina back here and can continue. So Irina seems to be back. Let's hope the best. Still joining from the waiting room, but so Irina, you're again back with us. Can you hear us? Can you see us? Because I saw you joining.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Hello,
sorry,
welcome back.
I'm super sorry. I'm back now.
We had a discussion about experience in UNISA, the student perspective already. We heard a personal story, and then we also discussed some other experiences with distance higher education. So we try to fill the silence here and wait you back.
Continue with the topic. I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I will. How much time can I still jump in with the end of the story, or
I think yes.
shall I abbreviate?
Let's try to at least.
Okay.
Because it was an
So
interesting story, and I think we don't want to miss the end.
did the end? Yes, exactly. So the presentation. I will share my screen now. I'm trying to be very fast. I'm jumping to the right slide. So thank you for the patience. Sorry for any inconveniences.
It is like with the story, like with the films and series, that we had this
Yeah.
adverse break in between.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. To make it a little bit more. Yeah. So, okay. I'm trying to find the right point of the story again. So I think we were in the mediation where the student was keeping on insisting that they keeping me zeros, telling me I'm stupid, and it came up that the student is belongs and has a autism spectrum disorder. And now the question was what to do now. And the professor was thinking and telling the student, please explain what would you like to have for the exam. What is your perspective on this now? And the student was telling, I need some clever questions, so they should give me questions I'm capable of. And the professor was thinking, and she said, okay, the policy is allowing you to do an oral assessment to the lecturer. And this was kind of part of the story. And the lecturer, what came still up to the topic was that the student was white and the lecturer was black. So the lecturer was also thinking that the student was really rude by saying to her, "Yeah, you are telling me I'm stupid." So this was also the facet of the story. But now the problem was solved by this, by doing the oral assessment. And actually, to cut this story short now, out on this agreeing on the oral assessment, policies allowing it, the girl got an distinction in this module. So it had been like 2 years that the student was like failing this exam and keep on insisting I can't write this language and so on. So the end of the story is that it could have been solved much earlier if the person from the disability unit at that time who was in charge would have allowed this or thought about, not allowed, but thought about this mediation situation. Because to the person at the disability unit and to everyone there, the situation was as follows. So it was like, black lecturer, white student, you are rude, you don't respect me, and we'll see. She will not pass anyway. So everyone was standing still. So to conclude, as they sat together there and found out that she's actually a genius and realizing that there are students who need challenging questions, it was clear it could have been found out long ago. So the big question posed by the story's ending is now, how could this be put in the policy? So yeah, this now a little bit abbreviated the story. So we have this story back in mind, and now we have all the policies here. And I just put some extracts from the document analysis here. So the policies, for example, at the University of South Africa say in their open distance and e-learning policy, commitment of social justice and fairness, and everyone there should be pursuit of equality irrespective of race, creed, gender, sexual orientation, class, and so on and so on. And there should be a responsible open admission policy that promotes equity and access. And also equity and fairness in regard of ethical and collective responsibility. That is really central in the strategy document of the UNISA. And then regarding the language policy, what was, by the way, adapted in 2023, so not long time ago, the emphasis of equality among all 12 official South African languages should be focused, because languages, it's very diverse in South Africa. That's important background if you look at UNISA. And I will focus on this point now because this is so huge, and I had a interview also with someone who's working on these strategic documents and the policies regarding language. And if you look at I will try to make it short. So UNISA has these 12 languages, and the 12th language that is official, what came to it now is the sign language. So sign language is the 12th one nowadays, also recommended in the strategic documents of the UNISA. And English is, although there are all these languages, the main language talked at UNISA. So you need to be able to talk in an academic English when you're studying there. So there are challenges by this, because the government says everyone needs to be able to study at UNISA, but there is no language test at the with the application, for example. They tried it, but it's kind of everyone said it's exclusive if you do a test in advance. Everyone needs to be able to come here to study. So there are new strategies for this implementation because there's a very good policy in the back, but there need to be ways found to implement it right. So this is just an extract here, and I wanted to show that it is, for example, focusing on I will now choose the second one, the strategic goal, provide support for students with disabilities. So if there are deaf students, there would be sign language interpreting at every course and class and support for those people. And this will take up to 3 years. So this is an ongoing process. So there are also the departments of the university working on it, like the Center for Students with Disabilities, and also the entrance center, what is called a registrar. So all the people who apply, they would go there for their application. So this is just an extract of how the implementation, what was, for example, also failing in the story before, how this could be done. And I will now focus a little bit more on the focus group and findings from there. So what was already teased now is that there are several challenges, like on the structure of the institution. So there are the policies, and then there's the practice, and it's not in line. So there is kind of a disconnect. And the role of policy is very centralized, so it's very high up there. It's made by some people, nobody knows from whom exactly. And the focus group participants, all working at the UNISA, said, it's kind of performative. So it looks nice, but teaching is still trial and error to meet all the needs of the students. And sometimes the students who are marginalized are also not in the policy. There's the Student Representative Council, the SRC at UNISA, and the voices of the students should be in there, but somehow the policies are not designed to let those students advocate for themselves. So these are some of the challenges that came up in the focus group. And I will now try to directly dive into the envisioning what the participants did then. So they were brainstorming what could be done on the institutional side to improve. So it should be, because the UNISA is very huge, instead of having only this one unit somewhere with disabilities, with specialists there, it would be helpful for the teachers, the lecturers, professors, to have at each college, for example, the College of Law, they have a College of Agriculture, College of Education, consultants and specialists on that kind of level, so that the person would be really informed what is needed in regard of inclusion and the policies in this regard at this college, and not a person for the whole university, because for example, the College of Education has like 80,000 students, and sometimes in classes there are 900 students, and this is like the reality, how big it is. So the institution should manage it to be context-based, and also maybe to considering the projects that are there, and the lecturers would be briefed also, what does inclusion at this certain area mean, so that they are guided better. And they also envisioned the students being advocative for themselves, so that the students are kind of telling the lecturers what they need. And in the end, there would needed to be the political will to implement those policies then, there also through financial support, because as we saw in the implementation strategy for the language policy, there are so many things, and this will cost a lot. So sign interpreting for classes is very expensive. And then the policies would be in the end decentralized. They would be in a kind of better synergy working, and also presenting an aim. So it should be, rather than, it was a very nice quote the participant did, rather than being a punitive truth, because the policies are policing in a certain kind of way, they should be declaring the aim, so that the aim of inclusion is very in the center and at the beginning. And this would lead to rethinking higher education institutions in a way of rethinking the structure, the functioning, the policies, also rethinking ways of leadership, and again, the political will. And I will now focus on the last very important thing, the advocacy of the students, because these student voices are so initial for this whole process, because everything needs to adapt to the student voices. But the students need to learn, that came up very stressed in the focus group. They need to learn about their abilities and preferences. And the step one is that the lecturers need to enable and capacitate them, because a lot of students don't know what they need. And then the second step would be that they could articulate what they need from the lecturer, and maybe also from the institution, and maybe go to the SRC, the Student Representative Council, to say, hey, we need this and that, and we need to improve that. And the policies, on the other hand, need to allow them to do that. So then in the end, that would be step 3, the students can advocate for themselves. So it is a collaboration between lecturer and student and institution. So it needs to work together and be very well communicated. Yeah, so I will come to the key message from here. So it is that UNISA's understanding of inclusion is strongly related to equity and fairness in the policy documents, also in the strategic plan. And the focus group revealed that these policies are very necessary, they are very good, but they are sometimes not reflecting on how inclusion is lived in the classroom and at the university, and what the challenges are actually. So one approach would be that, the diverse student voices would be more represented in parts of the institutional policies, like the SRC, the Student Representative Council. And now this is the time frame again. And what I will do next, because I have now the beginning of the frame of UNISA, I will do the same at the Fern University in Hagen. So this will happen very soon in March still. And why I do all this framing of the institutional context at the universities is that the future workshops I want to do with the students later, they need to be as inclusive as possible, and I want to reach as diverse student voices as I can. So this is giving the base. This whole policy analysis will give the base for the future workshop interventions with the students, where the students will hopefully envision how they see inclusive distance education in the future. So here's a very short conclusion. I will not read it out because I think we don't have too much time, and because we want to have some time for discussion, for the discussion. But maybe the last sentence is just a little bit catchy. So maybe this is, the whole project is also a story about how diverse inclusion is. So I still have a recommendation on an open access publication. So everyone can take the QR code if you like. But I think the slides will also be open for everyone after the session, so they will be uploaded. So I think you can also access this QR code then.
Yes, thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you.
Despite all the challenges, we managed to hear everything about your project. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You mentioned rather in the end that you are adapting your methodology a bit to make it more accessible for students and the target group. Maybe you can tell us a bit more that what are you changing compared to the focus groups or the research you did in UNISA and what you're going to do now. So how are you doing these adaptations there?
Yeah, I mean, the focus group now is also still with staff. But what I need to be very aware for with the student interventions is as there are so many students and there are so many marginalized groups, I need, for example, what came out at UNISA, that there are also students, for example, from incarceration. So I need to think, how could they be accessing my research? So would I need to go to to a facility like a prison, do on-site? Can they access also the workshop? And this will be very hard because they cannot get out for this research. So I need to reach these students in an accessible way. And this is just one group. So this is very the challenge of this project because it's so broad, and I'm taking the education for all approach very holistically and not just pointing on students with disabilities, with a certain disability or something. So I want to have a really broad sample of student voices. So this needs to be very careful, and the technology needs to be accessible in a certain kind of way. And I need to think about how to reach out. And it's different at UNISA as it will be at the Fern University.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, challenges. The broader, the
Yeah.
more challenges, but still
Yeah,
the more important
exactly.
results.
Yeah.
Okay, but any questions, comments from the audience? Either to the chat or just raise your hand, let us know. Maybe you want to specify something, maybe you want to elaborate on some topics further.
Yeah, exactly. Questions or comments are very welcome.
Anybody? Any ideas, questions, comments? Or if our audience is still thinking, actually.
Yeah.
You were mentioning, or actually, we were talking a bit before as well, that this higher education is maybe something that we don't think about like too much in everyday life. It's not like the most common topic that people are thinking of, and also this inclusivity is also something that we all know that it's important and we should pay attention to that, but maybe we sometimes don't know how exactly. And even if we have those policies, as you said, maybe the implementation is not on the highest possible level. I was also thinking that are there any misconceptions about inclusive distance higher education? And if yes, have you encountered any during your research and when you have been, for example, also presenting your project elsewhere, that is there anything like that that people just don't maybe understand or don't know?
Yeah, what maybe is a main thing is that because if people are thinking about distance education often because it's known as very flexible and everyone thinks, yeah, you can just switch on the computer whenever you want and wherever you want, that it is very inclusive. And I mean, a lot of people, for example, with disabilities, as far as I know, and talk to people, use it as a very flexible way of studies, but this is not the end because it would be very simple that it's very inclusive and we don't need to do anything anymore with it. But for example, we are living in very disruptive times and transformations are happening like digitalization. that we still need to very fast focus on those technologies and how these are adapting. And it is very hard to find the challenges there. So we need the students and go to them. So this participatory approach, I think, is very important to solve this, because then we can ask directly, what do you need? And the students need to be aware that their voice is needed for it, so that we can, for example, find accessibility challenges in technology or something like didactic things in the classrooms. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also one interesting question in the chat from Christina that maybe you can say something a bit more broadly about the wider context you mentioned in the beginning, the vision for distance education by 2050.
Yeah, so how I came up with 2050 is because I could also have taken the 2030 time horizon of the SDGs, but my idea or my approach is to make it a little bit further so that the students can think about the still further away time. And 2050 was also promoted by a UNESCO initiative. So, because everyone knows that maybe the goals of the SDGs will not be solved in 2030, that would be a miracle. So, we need to think already further. And regarding this future methodology, it will be very interesting to let the students imagine what will be in 2050, because technology will be super advanced. And this is just giving a little more wider horizon, because 2030 will be already in 4 years. So yeah.
This is easier to imagine for us as well. But
Yeah.
do you have any predictions, or what have you been imagining yourself maybe for the like further future?
Yeah, that is actually very interesting. I did not envision it in this kind of way. But I think what I experienced when I did this focus group in South Africa, that is, it's always first looking at the problems we have now. And it's really hard to go to this utopic kind of vision that you are really open um, to give it a chance to be inclusive in the future.
Yeah, so it's still like an open question how it will
Yeah,
actually look like.
it is super open, and as there are so many perspectives that are shaping inclusion, I think it will be very colorful. So this envisioning process.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions, comments, maybe your ideas that you want to share from the audience before we wrap it up? It's the last chance. Yes, Ulla, please.
Hello, thank you very much. I was just listening your presentation, Elena. Thank you very much. But is it okay if I ask a question slightly from a different perspective, not thinking in terms of disadvantaged students or students with other disabilities, but thinking of sort of distant education for a broader audience, just the regular students to take online courses elsewhere.
Yeah.
When it comes to the regular mobility, you know that virtual exchange or virtual mobility is a big part of nowadays discussion, that how to sort of upscale mobility, how to provide more opportunities for students just to take virtual courses or online courses from different institutions is one of the ways to do that. European University Alliances are considering virtual mobility as one of the ways to go. And probably many different universities have also tested it in one way or another. But nowadays, when it comes to the point of AI being a big buddy for us in our daily work, the question also is related to the formats of different assessments. It seems to me that a couple of years ago, especially during the corona pandemic, of course, virtual mobility was very much, it was in a way inevitable, and it was something that was highly encouraged. Nowadays, virtual mobility or taking online classes from different institutions is also common, but there is this big question in terms of assessment, how this can be done in a way that we can still assess student personal commitment to the task and their personal work, not the AI's help. And sort of proctored exams at the end of the distant classes or online classes are becoming very common. So what is your view on that? Sorry for explaining it lengthily, but it seems to me that this is like another angle that we are looking in terms of broadening mobility options. But what are the reactions, especially from an academic side, considering assessment complications with online learning? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The proctoring technology is very common in distance learning. That is also what is done at UNISA at Fern University. And I think the one, if it comes now to artificial intelligence, there might be there will be new advancements. But if I got you right, then I think the ethical policies regarding AI are not very well established at the moment. So they kind of bear possibilities, but also the challenges need to be found, and also the accessibility of AI would need to be tested. So I think that's a real highly discussed and to improve technological aspect to see how AI is responding to be inclusive, because AI has a lot of options to provide more inclusive learning, and also most probably also for assessments, but it needs to be tested.
Yeah, thank you, Irina, for answering, but also many thanks to Ulla for this a bit different but very intriguing angle that you touched upon.
I'm not sure if I answered throughout. So please, if there's something else, so.
No, I think that's
Okay.
This question of AI, and I can understand your point from the perspective of inclusiveness, and maybe there is this kind of when it comes to the general online courses, this is a slightly different approach, but it's an important thing to be considered for future online learning or distant learning anyway. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's time for us to wrap it up, but we already have a nice wider context discussion here as well. Many thanks to you, Irina, that you joined and agreed to share your project, very first preliminary findings, and of course we hope that your project will continue successfully, and maybe we can hear the final results at some point as well. We would be eager to do that, of course. And thanks to our listeners as well. And thank you that you stayed with us during the break.
Yeah.
Really many thanks. And you can all already save the date for the next EUROSTUDENT Talks. It will be April 16. EUROSTUDENT 9 is still in full swing, of course, but there is a chance to hear some fresh results already from our Czech colleagues and what they have find out about the internationalization of studies based on EUROSTUDENT 9 data. So in April, see you, and stay tuned via our webpage, Blue Sky account, when is the webinar exactly and where is the registration link. So see you next time, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Marlene.
Yeah, bye-bye.